So this is the Ford FE block that will be going in my 69 Eliminator. It's a 390 block. We're putting a stroker crank to make it 445. And here's a bunch of stuff up here for it. We got some diamond pistons with a big dish in them, so we can run pump gas, no problem. I don't remember what the compression ratio is going to be, but with the cam that was spec'd out for it and the chamber volume on a cast iron head, we should be in good shape. Got the stroker crank. That thing's been hanging around here for quite a while. I went upstairs and got all of my bearings, because I usually find to some degree we've got to mix and match bearings on the rods to get the clearance we're looking for. I probably didn't need to bring down so many main bearings, but here they are. And then the rods are in here in these little boxes. So we are going to put some main bearings in the block and get the crank mocked up, and then put rods and pistons in the four corners, because we need to take a depth measurement of it. This block has got just a little bit of roughage right here from water sitting in it, and so we need to deck it a bit. Hopefully it'll go enough that it cleans up that area, and also want to bring it down to about a 0 deck, so then the head gasket would give us about 40 or 42 thousandths clearance, or quench rather. So yeah, this is what we're doing. So this block has been line honed, and it is ready for crank here. So we're going to take these caps off, we're going to put the main bearings in, we're going to put the crank in there. Well, before we drop the crank in, I'm going to take measurements on the bearings, make sure that we have the clearance we're looking for. So we're going to start with miking out the crank. A little bit of surface rust. Luckily it's only on the counterweights. The journals, which are polished, seem to be in good shape, but better do this now, because waiting any longer they might get a little rust on them. But anyway, so we got the standards from Starrett to make sure the mic is in calibration, and I just checked it. It might be off by about 1/10, but you know, 1/10 can be how, you know, just how tight or how light or how tight your feel is with it. I think we can deal with about, if there is a 1/10 error in this mic, I think we can deal with that. So let's mic the crank. Okay, so I've got a notebook here. I'm going to write down what we're doing as I measure, and this way I have something to refer to instead of jumping back and forth. Okay, so after measuring, we got 17486 on all of them except for number 3, which is 17487. So now that we have those, we will put the bearings into the block next, and then use dial bore gauge. We'll set that up in the mic and measure the bearings and see what we get for a clearance. What we're using for bearings is a Speed Pro 125M. These are a 3/4 groove bearing. On the block, it's got the groove all the way, and then the groove extends a little bit into each one. This is how they came out of the box. I guess that's what you call shelf wear, just as the things are kind of moving around during delivery and sitting there on the shelf, and got everything laid out. Now, a friend of mine who worked at a high-performance engine shop said they like to use coffee filters to clean these parts. Coffee filters and lacquer thinner, and so we got the lacquer thinner as well over here. So we're going to clean this stuff before it goes together. Clean the saddles in the block, and then put the bearings in, and torque down the main caps and measure what we have, and hopefully the clearance comes out about where we want it. Well, that came out pretty good. I don't see hardly anything on there for debris or filth. Let's do the caps. I throw these on the floor like that so they dry out, and then they can be thrown in the garbage. I don't want to throw something with you know, some of the solvents and such can build up heat, and so you throw them in a garbage can where they can accumulate and perpetuate heat. That's asking for a fire to start. So I throw these on the ground, they'll dry out, and then they could be thrown in the garbage. Then we'll put them in the engine block. Put the bearings in the block here. Now we'll put the upper bearings in the engine block. I line up the tab and then push the other side in. We're going to tighten down the caps and measure the bearing bores. So the ARP instructions for those bolts call for 100 foot-pounds. We're going to set that here on the torque wrench. Bolts are lubricated, so it should achieve the proper torque. Crankshaft out of the way. Next thing we'll do is we'll set the dial indicator at what we measured the crank to be. Take another measurement here just to get it set in place. Yeah, and that's right where we were. Lock down the thimble. That one's too big. It's too small. I wonder what I had this set up for last time, if it's that much too big. Yeah, this one won't fit the bigger. So I have two of these dial bore gauges, and the bigger one won't the base of it won't fit. But so we'll just have to put the correct extension on this little one, and then get that dialed in, and then we can go along with each bearing and see what we have for clearance. There, a little on this side, back over here, and we got it clicked on both sides. Okay, let's try this again. got about 2.4 on that. Okay, well, let's see what we got with this one. Oh, 2.6. Right at 2.6. Happy with that. Let's do the number 2 main. Okay, so here's what we got. We got, starting from the back, number 5, we got 2.6 and then 2.4. 2.6 on 3, 2.4 on 2, and then 2.3 on number 1. And I think I'm going to leave well enough alone. I don't know if I can do anything to, you know, other than, yeah, with the way the V-belts pull on the crank in the front, you usually see a lot of bearing wear there, so you know it'll be okay for the type of engine it is. But we're right in range where I'm happy with it. It's not going to present any problem at all to be, you know, a couple tenths tighter over there with what this engine's going to be doing. So now we can take the caps off, put the crank in, and then we will assemble some rods and pistons. Alright, so now we're going to drop in the crank. Get a little oil, even though we're only mocking up. Everything's going to get a little bit of oil. Alright, so I'm going to kind of almost tighten down this number 3 here. There we go. Now these will run in a little better. Back it off about 1/8 of a turn. And then we're gonna give it a good whack forwards and backwards. So this way we make sure to get that cap set in place. Of where it should be. Then we can torque it down. with number 4 next. Use the speed handle. And the torque wrench. Okay, so good. Okay, feels good. All right, now we'll move on to setting up rods and pistons. Putting the piston pins in, and so it wouldn't go in this way, but it goes in this way, and then it stops right there. And this other piston does the same thing. It stops right at the end. So I had one more that did that. I took a really fine stone and just at a low angle just went off the edge. So we'll do that with this one and until it fits. Give that a try. Let's see what we got. It's better. It goes in further, but it still hangs up. Do that a little bit more. Maybe this pin got dropped. Nope, still wants to stick. All right, well, I'll do this some more. I'll be right back. Well, that feels good now. I guess third time's a charm on that one. So we'll take a look at this one. It's the same thing. It goes that far and then it stops. So I'll go do the same treatment to this one and be right back. So these pistons will take 2 spiral locks per side of the pin. All the pins move freely now, so we're going to put the spiral locks on one side and then slide the pin in with the rod, and then put the other side of spiral locks on. It takes 2 per side, so 4 per piston. these aren't the easiest ones to get in. Here we go. There's one. Seems like you gotta not stretch them out, but get them to uncoil a little bit there. Try to put this in the opposite way. Probably doesn't make a difference, but you know. Oops. There we go. There's two in there. It's going to be fun. Well, I suppose I could do the piston. Ugh, sticky stuff. Well, we're going to put some in there. And in where the pin goes. I'm pretty sure the there. Okay, so let's see. Oh. Yes, that is right, or that is correct. The piston like this. We're going to have the big chamfer on this side, on the right side. Get these gloves off to do the other two rings. Makes it just a little easier, because I'm sure it's just going to rip the glove anyway. One more, and this one's ready. one's sticking out just a little bit. Oh, there it is. Want to make sure they are clipped in all the way. Okay. One down. And 28 more rings to go. Okay, back again today. It's the following day. Measured the rod journals and wrote down those measurements. So they're just under 2.2 by 1.5 thou. So we're gonna put bearings into the big ends of the rod. Gonna clean it up first with some lacquer thinner, and then put bearings in there, and then set up the dial bore gauge so we can see what the oil clearance is going to be with the rod bearings. Well, I have a couple different brands to choose from. I don't know which ones I'm going to go with. I have both Clevite and Speed Pro. If I get these, I mean, these I think were used I don't know if that's just some marks from the setup from when they had used them balancing. Let's see. Well, I don't know if this is a complete set. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh yeah, I guess it is. I don't know. We'll try the Speed Pro. Clean off the bearing, back of the bearing here. See, that's a upper, and that one's a lower. On these big block Chevy rods, so that's what the stroker kit uses. The stroker crank has a journal sized for big block Chevy because it's popular component. And it uses a 6/7 rod in the stroker kit. So we'll put if you could see the letters here and here, put those back together. That's where they were. My engine hammer here, it's as you can see, it's a lot longer on one side for tapping in a piston down into a bore. Now these have already got a little bit of lubricant on them, but this it's a little excessive, but this Isky Rev Lube is, I've always been using it for this and had good luck with it. Nice to have a vise on this table so I could clamp the rod and torque it down, but I gotta move over to where my vise actually is. Okay, so I got this just not real tight, but tight enough, and there's a rag here to give it a little cushion so it's not metal on metal and nothing's touching the piston. So we will torque those rod bolts. 65 foot-pounds. Okay. Now we can go back and check bearing clearance. But we will have to set up the it's easy for things to get stacked up here. Excess stuff. But, all right, so we already checked the mic with the standard earlier before measuring the rod journals, and now we just have to set up the dial bore gauge to the mic, and then we'll measure the pistons. As you can You see the micrometer, or the dial bore gauge, is set up for measuring the main bearing clearance, which was quite a bit bigger. So I got to change the end down here on it. I think this short one puts us right where we need to be. That's the one I took out last time, so apparently maybe I was measuring rods last time. Okay, so when we test that, we are bringing this in, and the gauge goes just part way around. If we go around more than a revolution, then that could cause confusion or an error in what we're trying to read. So we want it to go less than 1 revolution so we don't get mixed up with it. And so now that I set it up, I should have checked the mic first. Oh, it's right where we left it. Oh yeah, I have it. I had the thimble locked. So this is ready to test a rod here. In like that. We're about 3.5. That's a bit more than I want. All right. So that's a standard size Speed Pro bearing. We have the 1 and the 1X as well, because I've found in the past you can't just buy the set of bearings you think is going to fit. They don't always come in right where you expect them to come in. I think 1 is 1 more thousandths of clearance, so we're going to try the 1X and see what we end up with here. So all right, time to take this rod apart. That one was the lower, so we're going to put that back over here in its container. And here's the upper, and it's going to go back into its container. And find the box for them, put them back in the box, because chances are they're all going to be about a thou more, you know. So I'm really looking for around 2 thousandths clearance on this. cleaned up. That one, so where's the U? I'm looking for the U. Oh, there it is. Alright, so if it's if it's Ford rods, the bearings are the same for the upper and the lower. But on this Chevrolet, they are different from each other. And probably can't see it on camera, but real close. It's right there. There's an L at the end of that part number. And what happens if you put them in the wrong position, they'll end up being offset, and they might conflict with the chamfer that's supposed to provide some clearance for the radius on the crank journal. So you got to make sure those are in the correct spots. These have enough lube on them that they'll be okay. Not going to tighten them, just going to run them down and then head back over to the vise and do the same thing we did a minute ago. Okay, and that thing we just did a minute ago, that was torquing the rod bolts to 65 foot-pounds. Okay, let's see what we end up with here. Wow, it's like 4.5. Maybe I got it wrong. I think maybe the X opens it up. Alright, well, we'll try the regular one. Put these ones back in the package, and we'll try the other ones. And if not, then we'll try the clevites. Alright, so we only got 6 in here. Must have used some somewhere, but we'll see what we got. Alright, so this one's a lower. That one's got a U for upper. Okay, be right back. I'm gonna go torque these down. Okay, well, let's see where we come up with now. We're about 2.6. About 2.6. Kind of curious where the clevites will end up. Alright, so I have a set of clevites that are same thing as these. They're -1, one undersize. And let's try those out, see where they end up. Alright, so these clevites are a little different than the Speed Pro. They're not marked upper or lower. They look exactly the same, and the tabs seem to be in the same place, but as I put them on here, they don't seem to overlap into the journal area. So I'm gonna think that they can go in either position. Okay, I'll torque this. Okay, here we go again. Boy, that's right at 2. Happy with that. You know, some guys might say I should be at 2.5. You know, when you look at the Ford specifications on this, they're like a lot tighter. Matter of fact, let me go get the book and read what the Ford spec is. Now this is 1969 Ford engine manual. So what I'm finding here is it's 8/10, which is less than 1/1000, up to 2/1000 and 6/10. And you know, a lot of guys, a lot of good, knowledgeable guys, engine builders, they'll say that 8/1000 is way too tight. So, but I don't want to be up around 3. This engine is going to mostly be idling and cruising, and not very often will it be running at high RPMs. So I'm gonna stay within the Ford spec, but I think 2/1000 is going to be fine, and that's what I would prefer, because it'll have a little bit better oil pressure at idle with the tighter clearance. So that's what we're going to go with. We're going to go with these bearings. And we'll measure every rod as it goes together to make sure that we're going to be where we want it to be, and you know, not have one that all of a sudden is down at, you know, 1.5 thou or something. But yeah, that's these are what we'll go with. Alright, so I got a little coating of oil on the bearing, and we're going to set this down in here. There's no rings because we're only mocking it up. To get a depth measurement. Put the cap on from the bottom. Once we put a little oil on that bearing, from underneath and just ran those bolts in. I'm going to torque them in place, and actually, you know what, I'll leave them run in right now, and just I'll set all the pistons in place. I'm just going to do the 4 corners on this. Alright, so we'll do the number 8. That'll be the next one here. I'll get that set up, and then we'll drop that in. Okay, so we have number 5 and number 8 in place. Wow. Kind of curious what we're gonna, where we're gonna be at. You can see there's quite a big step there, so it's looking like we'll definitely be able to clean this up. Okay, so all 4 corners are in place, and I torqued all the rod bolts. So we're going to turn this over and then try to measure how much piston to deck clearance we have. Actually, you know what, I'll put this where it's just upright. Alright, so to help try and find where the piston's going to top out at, I put this dial indicator on. So if I move the piston up, right about there, that's a big step. Wow, could probably run with no head gasket. Anyway. Alright, so let me take this away. Set that down. And let's get the depth mic and check this again. We're at 75 over here. Now, I wonder if there's variation in this deck surface right now. $77. So if we rock this, let's see, how do I want to do this? Whoops, don't want to do that. Like, kind of like playing the game Twister. I'll get all the way up there while pushing down on this side. Yeah, we're still, actually we're at 74 on that. Now if we do it the opposite way here, yeah, so we're basically about 75 in the hole, because it's 75 and a half. if I push the piston this way and measure. So I think the best thing to do is measure right above the pin. The piston can't rock like this, but it does rock like that. So I'm trying to measure above the pin. Yeah, about 77. And 75. Try another one, see how that comes out. We'll try, this would be the number 5 piston. Put that dial indicator on here. We can find a place to put it. About 95 is where it tops out at. About 80. Make sure we're coming down right on that quench area. And 79. Let's write this down. 80, 79. About 70. 72, 73, 74, 73. So what does that mean? How much do we take off when it comes to cutting the deck here? Well, I'm going to do a little research, ask some questions, and make sure we're going to go in the correct direction before taking any material off of this block. We'll find out soon. Okay, so it's good to measure things, and when things don't make sense, it's good to ask questions. That's a really big step there, and it is not normal for an FE to have a piston that far below the deck surface. So after asking somebody that builds these if that is a typical amount in the hole, he said no. So trying to figure out what's going on, took some other measurements here and there, and turn this thing around. I was looking at some of the piston specs. You know, the compression height 1330, and this is for a 4 1/4 stroke crank. So I'm looking at various things, thinking, well, the crank's not going to be off. You know, when you look here, here it is on the box, 4250. And the piston, I was able to measure the pin height on the piston, and that came in at the 133 that they were talking about here. And I said, well, the rods are not going to be off, but found the problem. Now, I was about to go home for dinner, and I said, you know, let me look at one more thing here just to verify. Even though this box that the crankshaft came out of, brand new, says 4250. When you look at the crank, on the crank, it says 4125. While there is a little extra on the deck that can be cut off, it seems like typically it might be around 10 thousandths or so, maybe 12. That would make up a 62.5 thousandths difference of having the different stroke crank in there. So this would not have run very well if I just put it together without measuring things. And this is why it's important to measure and verify and check. So it's a little embarrassing that this got this far before noticing that it was the wrong crankshaft. But here we are. It should be a pretty easy problem to remedy, but it'll put things on hold for now. So it is a fixed measurement on the difference between the two cranks of 62.5. So I will be able to cut the block, but I think we're gonna stop this video here for now, and we'll do that in a to be continued video, and then after that we'll do a third part with putting the engine, the rest of the engine together. So it'll be fun, little challenges along the way, but we have enough time to accommodate them, and we'll get it done, and hopefully get this engine in the car that it's going into, and make it to the Carlisle All Ford show for the first weekend in June. That's not that far away, but you know, I think we'll make it, and this is what makes things fun. Anyway, talk to you soon, and I'll keep you posted.